folk deserve better. Lisa, Prosper, and Philip Pierre, pardon.
At a recent briefing, Prime Minister Philip Pierre claimed that the custody suites project has been delayed due to bathroom sinks and toilets breaking during shipment. Not just once, but twice.
There was a series of unfortunate events. Number one, there was supposed to have the toilets, the special toilets. They got broken. When in shipping. My information is they were sent back to all the new ones, and then the yellow ones came back and they sent back the same broken ones. So my information, you see, and a lot.
But here's the truth. The sinks and toilets designed for prison facilities are made of stainless steel, built to withstand extreme conditions and nearly impossible to break in transit. The Prime Minister's claim doesn't add up. This project was initially estimated to cost $1.5 million. Somehow, that budget tripled to $4.5 million. And now there are reports that the costs have spiraled even higher. With every delay and excuse, taxpayers are forced to bear the burden of rising costs while the government dodges accountability. Why isn't Prime Minister Pierre giving the people the truth about what's really causing the delays and escalating the costs? St. Lucia deserves a leader who takes responsibility, not one who resorts to dubious excuses. Our country demands transparency and honesty, not stories that simply don't hold water.
In 2019, the Alan Chastanet-led United Workers' Party took decisive action to address the healthcare challenges faced by St. Lucians. The UWP secured a US $20 million loan from the World Bank under the Health Systems Strengthening Project. Out of this loan, US $5.5 million was specifically allocated to establish the framework for a national health insurance program. Under this initiative, every St. Lucian would have received up to $75,000 in healthcare coverage on an annual basis, making healthcare more accessible, equitable, and affordable for all. An advisory board of experts, including Dr. Stephen King and Dr. Merle Clark, was assembled to design the framework for this transformative program. However, when the Philip J. Pierre administration took office, they chose to abandon this initiative. Why? Simply because it was started by the United Workers' Party. The consequences of this decision are devastating. Families continue to struggle with medical expenses, hospitals remain overwhelmed, and St. Lucians are left without the healthcare safety net they were excitedly expecting. Where is the accountability? Where is the vision? We would not be facing the current health crisis if the NHI program had been implemented. The National Health Insurance Program was never about politics. It was about people. It would ensure every St. Lucian had access to the care they deserve. Let's set the record straight. The health of our nation should never be sacrificed for politics. It's time to demand a healthcare system that St. Lucians deserve. Labour, Pabo.
On October 20th, 2024, at the SLP's Conference of Delegates in Vieux-Fort, Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre made a desperate attempt to rewrite history.
You will remember that the United Workers' Party only gave COVID support to NIC contributors.
This claim is absolutely false. The truth? In July 2020, under the UWP administration, 5,000 St. Lucians who were non-contributors of NIC received $500 a month for 3 months to help them survive the pandemic. Prime Minister Pierre knows the facts, yet he chose to lie to the nation. Why? To mislead and divide. Made due to significant public pressure over the last 2 weeks. Our young athletes deserve leaders who will prioritize their development, not make excuses. It's time for transparency, accountability, and truth. St. Lucia deserves a government that values youth empowerment, not one that sidelines it. Kenson Pabo.
Are you ready to make a difference? Join the movement that aims to make St. Lucia the best place to live, work, visit, and invest. The United Workers' Party is a team of forward thinkers, visionaries, passionate and caring citizens just like you. Together, we can create a brighter future, create safer communities, lower taxes, improve healthcare, and create more opportunities for all. Stand with the UWP and be part of change. Join the United Workers' Party because St. Lucia deserves better.
Youth and Sports Minister Kenson Kazime is under fire now that it has been revealed that he has acquired millions worth of real estate over the last 3.5 years. Since assuming office, Kazime has developed 3 villas in Union Hilltop. He is now in the process of constructing another development in Cap Estate, this time with 5 properties. What makes this transaction suspicious is that Kazime made a $100,000 cash deposit on the property. The total cost of the property is about $273,000. Compounding the situation is that a contractor, who is also a political financier of Kazime, this same contractor was awarded a multi-million-dollar contract for rehabilitation work done on the Darren Sammy cricket ground in preparation for World Cup cricket, as well as numerous other contracts in the constituency of Gros Islet. The allegations being leveled against the minister is that he has received kickbacks from the contractor for the Cap Estate development in return for the awarding of multi-million-dollar contracts around the constituency. Has Kazime filed these developments with the Integrity Commission? Prime Minister Philippe Pierre claimed that he would have a zero tolerance for corruption in his cabinet, although he has ignored numerous glaring examples of corruption amongst his cabinet colleagues. Will this be another situation that Philippe Pierre blindly ignores? St. Lucians deserve answers. Kenson and Philippe Pierre Pabo.
The United Workers' Party reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the health and well-being of every St. Lucian. When re-elected, we will reinstate the National Health Insurance NHI program, a vital initiative that was regrettably abandoned by the St. Lucia Labour Party, the SLP. This decision by the SLP has left thousands of St. Lucians vulnerable with limited access to affordable quality health care. The United Workers' Party will correct this injustice because we believe that health care is not a privilege, it is a fundamental human right that every citizen is entitled to. The National Health Insurance Program was designed to create a comprehensive, inclusive, and sustainable healthcare system that ensures no one is left behind or left out. And that is regardless of economic status. Under the leadership of the United Workers' Party, the NHI will be reinstated to provide the following benefits to St. Lucians. 1. Comprehensive health coverage. Every St. Lucian will have access to essential healthcare services, which includes doctor consultations, hospitalization, specialist care, diagnostic tests, maternity services, prescription medication, and emergency medical attention. No one will be denied care because of their inability to pay. Secondly, we'll reduce the financial burden. Too many families and individuals face the impossible choice between seeking medical care and meeting basic living expenses. NHI will significantly reduce out-of-pocket expenses, making healthcare more affordable for all, especially for vulnerable groups like the elderly, children, low-income families, and single parents. 3. Timely and efficient medical attention. Long wait times and delayed treatments often result in worsened health outcomes. With the NHI, patients will receive timely care, preventing complications and reducing the strain on our already burdened healthcare system. Number 4, it will focus on preventative care. Preventative healthcare reduces long-term costs and improves quality of life. The NHI will cover preventative services such as routine checkups, screenings, immunizations, and health education programs to promote healthier lifestyles and reduce the prevalence of chronic lifestyle diseases. Number 5, strengthening the healthcare system. The NHI will provide the financial stability needed to upgrade medical facilities, invest in modern equipment, and improve the working conditions of healthcare professionals. This will enhance the overall quality of healthcare services across the island. And 6, peace of mind for all St. Lucians. Knowing that quality healthcare is always within reach and accessible provides a sense of security. Families will no longer live in fear of medical emergencies they cannot afford, and every child will have the opportunity to grow up healthy and strong. With the United Workers' Party, St. Lucians will certainly have a healthier future. The United Workers' Party has a proven track record of investing in St. Lucia's health sector, from improving hospital infrastructure to increasing the availability of medical resources. Our vision for St. Lucia includes a robust healthcare system where no citizen is left to suffer due to lack of accessibility or affordability. The abandonment of the NHI by the SLP was a betrayal of the people's trust, but under the United Workers' Party, we will restore this critical program because we believe in a St. Lucia where healthcare is accessible, affordable, and reliable for every citizen. When you vote for the United Workers' Party, you are voting for a healthier, stronger, and more secure St. Lucia. Your health is our priority, and we will deliver. A United Workers' Party government plans to change this situation. This crisis demands more than just words. It requires leadership action and solutions. As a government, we will take decisive steps to restore law and order, provide opportunities for our people, and take our communities back from crime and violence. We will do the following. 1, empowering our youth with after-school and weekend programs. We will introduce holistic after-school and weekend programs that keep our youth engaged in sports, music, technology, and vocational training, providing positive alternatives to crime and idleness. Number 2, creating more economic opportunities. Many of our young men turn to crime due to lack of employment, and so we will work A special good morning to everyone and welcome to another of the weekly press briefing by the United Workers' Party. And today we have with us Mrs. Marcella Johnson, the United Workers' Party candidate for the Grosley constituency. We have Mr. Rush Clark, the endorsed candidate for Castries Central, and Deputy Political Leader Mr. Guy Joseph, and candidate for Castries Southeast. For today's press briefing, we will have a number of topics that will be addressed. We'll have Mrs. Johnson address the topic of cost of living and high prices at the supermarket. We will have Mr. Clark speaking on the issue of land ownership in St. Lucia. And of course, to end it all, we will have Deputy Political Leader Mr. Guy Joseph, who will address us on UHC, that is Universal Healthcare, and he will be touching as well on the issue of infrastructure. So welcome once again. We want to welcome especially those of you who are watching us via live stream in the diaspora, I want to extend a special welcome to members of the media as well. And just to inform you that towards the end of this press briefing, we'll allow for an opportunity for questions to be posed to the presenters. And so we will start off and get the ball rolling with Mrs. Marcella Johnson, the endorsed candidate for the Grosley constituency, who will address you on the issue of inflation and high cost of living. Welcome, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, members of the media, fellow citizens of St. Lucia, watching both at home and in the diaspora. Thank you all for being here today. We are gathered at a time when too many St. Lucians and their families are struggling to make ends meet. Across the country, the cries are the same. Groceries are too expensive, utility bills are rising, and the cost of basic living is becoming unbearable. Inflation is not just a number. It is a daily burden on our mothers, our pensioners, the hard-working men and women in this country. As a member of the opposition, it is my duty to speak truth to power, to hold this government accountable, and to advocate for people who are being left behind. This morning, I will speak plainly about the real impact of inflation on our people, the government's failure to respond with urgency, and the alternative solutions we are proposing to bring relief to the nation. Because St. Lucians deserve better. They deserve leadership that listens, acts, and is people-focused. Now, this document I have in my hand, the Economic and Social Review, which is presented by the government of St. Lucia. This is where I've gathered most of the information that I'm going to speak to you about today. Everyone should get a copy and read it. It's available online on the government's website and will provide insight into what is really happening in St. Lucia today, because you can't believe what you're hearing. According to this report, and in particular Table 28, the cumulative annual average inflation rate for the period 2021 to 2024 was 12.8%. This is extremely high. Ever since 2021, St. Lucians have been crushed with the weight of inflation due to some extent by the domestic policies of this government. The health and security levy, which is indeed a very oppressive tax, and the high fuel prices imposed on the backs of the people, even at a time when international prices of the fuel have been reducing to an all-time low at $60 per barrel. The government is using the low international price of fuel to accumulate revenue, whilst you, the people in this country, are struggling to make ends meet and cannot eat properly. Usav saki a gorget, naidu saki a gorget. A gorget se le moun che bewa kou, ek yo ka tangle ou. Se sa gouvernement ka fe nou, yo ka tangle nou. Tout gorge nou ka fe nou mal. Eba nou ni pou dou bout sa, ek se pou sa me la hodia, pou dizot sa ka fete peyi nou. In 2021, the annual inflation rate was 2.4%, which is above normal limits. In 2022, it was 6.4%. This is way above normal and almost 3 times more than the economists' prescribed acceptable rate of inflation. In 2023, the inflation rate was 4.5%, which was way above normal limits. And in 2024, a razor-thin decrease of negative 0.5% has proven inadequate. Inadequate to curtail 3 years of economic stifling caused by rising consumer prices. Whilst inflation rose by an overall 12.8% during the last 4 years, civil servants got an increase of 6%, which does not compensate for even half of the inflationary pressures breaking the backs of the people of St. Lucia. What does this say to you? What does this say to you? We are in an economic crisis. If the civil servants, who are the best paid, cannot keep up with the suffocating rising cost of living, imagine an ordinary gas attendant or someone earning a minimum monthly wage of $1,100, a step worker who gets paid $500 every 3 months, sanitation attendants, self-employed vendors. Even those vendors who are attached to the tourism industry complained that they had less than an ideal season last year. Let us look at the Consumer Price Index. For food and non-alcoholic beverages, over the 4-year period from 2021 to 2024, the statistics revealed an overall increase in the Consumer Price Index of 8.2%. Yet again, above the civil servant salary increase of 6%. When food prices go up, it is the most vulnerable in our society who are affected the most. Food affects a large percentage of the single parents' household, especially single mothers with young children. Remember, the Prime Minister indicated that the health and security levy would not affect food. Yet, we can see that the Prime Minister's predictions of the ill-conceived measure passed in the middle of an economic crisis was flawed. The tax is flawed. The government talks about removing VAT on food items, but it is not until 2026, July of 2026. And do you know what July of 2026 is? That is the date, the month election is supposed to be called. We don't know when it will be called, but this is the end of the 5-year term. So what does this say to you about this promise? This is too late for the mother in Labon struggling to feed her family today. People need relief now, not next year when it is politically convenient. I meet people in the various communities who lament every day about the high food prices. Just imagine a woman met me in the supermarket and picked up a piece of cheese just about maybe 3 inches. And she said to me, "Do you know that cheese, this piece of cheese used to be about $4 and now it is $13? St. Lucians, wake up and mind your business." The people in our communities are having to live from hand to mouth to buy food in the community corner shop. Bulk shopping in the supermarket is a rare thing for most persons as they purchase every day from the corner shop, either in cash, or on credit. That is the harsh reality of what some persons are going through. And the cycle continues from month to month. Let's move on to housing, water, electricity, and gas. Take note. During the 4-year period from 2021 to 2024, the consumer price index increased by an overall 20.7%. This is erratic. You see, electricity and gas affects production and the operations of any business. So I can tell you the businesses in this country are feeling it. The decision by the government to sustain gas prices at the highest has impacted many essential services and affecting the most vulnerable households. Fuel and electricity prices are built into the cost of doing business, and the government policies have created an environment for economic mayhem. In 2022, could you imagine your electricity bill or rent going up by 24.1%? Because that's what it was in 2022. Who planned for that? Was there an increase in your salary? The person who felt the brunt of the increase was you. Whilst in 2023 and 2024, there was a snail's pace decrease, this has failed to impact the destruction of 2022 on the purses of the hardworking men and women in this country. The overall transportation index was also astronomically high during the last 4 years at 34.5%. This is the harsh reality of the impact of bus fares on the people in this country. Imagine a woman who's living in Micoud has to take 3 buses to get to work in Cap Estate. And the bus fare for a round trip is $24 a day. This is hard, very hard, and this is the reality for some of our people in this country. The government has allowed the price of fuel to remain high at $16.50 for the most part of their tenure, even when oil prices went down to as low as $60 a barrel. Let's talk about the Consumer Price Index on health, which increased by an overall 10.1% during 2021 to 2024. So here we are, in the middle of a health crisis, where our hospitals are undersupplied, understaffed, and under-equipped. Many families would therefore have to rely on private health services to meet their needs. Not even the civil servants and their salary increases are keeping up the pace with the rising healthcare costs. Many families are choosing to buy medication, not to buy medication, or not to do important medical scans or tests, or other life-saving measures because of the rising cost of healthcare or their inability to afford it. I have witnessed many helpless families having fundraisers, yes, fundraising barbecues to help raise funds for their family members who are ill, and they have to rely on the goodwill of their friends, their families, and their neighbors. But the UWP has a plan to address the increase in the healthcare costs and to address the lack of proper healthcare in St. Lucia with the well-pronounced national health insurance coverage for St. Lucians up to $75,000. So when the Prime Minister tells us that the economy is doing well, I present these facts, which clearly outlines a different reality for most St. Lucians who live on a day-to-day basis. The Prime Minister would also like us to believe that the current inflation crisis is imported, but we in the United Workers' Party say to him that it is self-inflicted by a government that is clueless about the economic realities of our time, of this time. I also observe in recent times that the Prime Minister announced that his cabinet will remove the 6.5% service charge on goods and services. In addition, the removal or the intended removal of VAT on food items does not go far enough to reduce the painful increases of the general cost of living on the backs of the citizens of this country. We have not begun to feel the impact of inflation caused by the UF tariffs on imports. Many individuals in this country import a lot of goods online. The government needs to be transparent and tell us what is going to happen to the cost of imports, as a huge number of persons shop on Shein and on Amazon. The United Workers' Party therefore calls on this government to immediately come up with a comprehensive plan to address the cost of living crisis in St. Lucia. We propose that the government remove the health and security levy now to ease the burden on vulnerable families in this country. Reduce the petroleum gas at the pumps now in line with market conditions. Reduce the price of bus fares by compensating bus drivers with rebates. Implement a short-term removal of all taxes on food importation by private individuals. Increase the level of inputs to our local farmers to stimulate production on our farms. We need to ensure that we have a sustainable program for the food security in this country. My time is short. I could go on and on. But I leave you with these words to ponder, because we are facing a harsh reality in this country. And St. Lucians, if you do not wake up now, it will be too late. I thank you. And as the press briefing goes on, we will open the floor to questions, and at that point, I'll be able to answer or address any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Marcella Johnson. You just heard as she expounded on the issue of high cost of living in St. Lucia. You can clearly see that our government has created a situation where they have compounded the inflation that exists in this country. Now that there is an impending general election, they are pretending that they are making the situation that they have worsened a little better, but we are saying that that is not enough. The inflation that was created by our own government with the imposition of the 2.5% and the other measures that were mentioned by Mrs. Johnson should be addressed by the government of St. Lucia, and that should be done immediately to bring some reprieve to the people of St. Lucia. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will shift our focus a little as I call on the candidate for Castries Central, Mr. Rush Clark, who will deal with the issue of land ownership in St. Lucia. Please welcome Mr. Clark.
Good morning, members of the press, fellow St. Lucians, and those who are deeply concerned with the future of land ownership in this country. It would be ideal, in fact, it would be deeply meaningful for every St. Lucian to one day own a piece of St. Lucia. To have stake in this land, not just in theory, but in title, in pride, and in opportunity. And with that vision in mind, it is precisely why I must address the Prime Minister's most recent statement. He said, and I quote, "This year, they will give everybody who is on Crown lands who has been there for more than 30 years, they will give them with the land for free." Now, let me start by saying, I wholeheartedly support land ownership for people who have been living on Crown lands for decades. But the truth is, this is not a new idea. This is not a favor, and this is not a gift. What the Prime Minister has announced has been part of this country's law since 1956. Since 1956. Now allow me to elaborate. Under Section 2103A of the Civil Code of St. Lucia, it says this: "Title to immovable property may be acquired by sole or undisturbed possession for 30 years. If the possession is proven to the satisfaction of the Supreme Court." In simple terms, if you have been living peacefully on Crown lands for 30 years or more, you can apply to the court. And once it has been approved, you can become the legal owner. You don't need to have a politician hand it to you. It is your legal right under the law. So when a government comes now and pretends to gift you something, what they're really doing is taking credit for something that already exists. Right now, we are in what I call silly season, where all laws are being dressed up as new promises to gain political mileage. Let us not forget, this same administration once told every civil servant you would receive $1,500. How many of you received that? And if some of you are still waiting, go ahead, write in the comments, still waiting. With that in mind, it is high time politicians stop playing politics and start focusing on the real policies that truly serve the people. Because the real issue here isn't just about who qualifies now. What happens to the ones who don't quite meet the 30-year mark? What happens to the single-parent mother that has been on the land for 15 years? Or the 30-year-old young man who's just starting up? And does he have to find himself waiting 60 till he's able to own land? Where's the vision? Where's the plan? Will the land once owned be transferable to your children? Can you use that as a means of obtaining a loan? Can you build upon it, and under what condition? Will the government help you pay for the legal fees? Because here's the harsh reality. Like my colleague once said, many people don't even know how to apply for land ownership. The legal process is expensive, It's confusing and it's tedious. So once again, let me make this clear. I support people being able to own land that they have lived on for years. But what the Prime Minister announced is not new and it is not enough. We need to stop falling for these recycled ideas, dressed up as fresh promises. To my people in Conway, Grass Street, Chaussee, Sans Souci, and across Castries Central, your future should not be dependent on political theater. We need real, simple, and honest policies that helps everyone, not just those that hit the 30-year mark. What we need is a land ownership help program focused on covering legal advice, paperwork, and even support within the courtroom, taking away the stress and confusion from everyday families. What we need is a plan for those that are under 30. If someone who has been living on Crown lands for 10, 15, or even 20 years, they should not be ignored. Maybe they don't qualify for the full-time ownership as yet, but we could start them on a lease program whereby, following certain conditions, they can obtain ownership in the future. What we need is community education. By simply explaining to people their rights in owning land, not just communities and stand on a stage and then present it as wonderful ideas. We need face-to-face interaction. And most importantly, we need to make land ownership practical. Ensure that the land the people use or receive is useful. It should be something that you can pass on to your children, use as security for a loan, or build on it with confidence. Because true leadership is not about saying things to just receive an applause. It's about fixing the system so that it works for people to win, not the politicians. Recycling old laws and calling them gifts, it's not leadership. It's a distraction. So I say this to you. Ask the real questions. Know your rights and demand better. And when this time comes to vote, you vote for honesty, you vote for fairness, and you vote for a real plan that actually includes you. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much. You just heard from Mr. Rush Clark, the candidate for Castries Central, addressing the issue of land ownership in St. Lucia. Basically, what I'm hearing from Mr. Rush Clark is that you shouldn't gift wrap old toys and present it to us as Christmas gifts. It is something that already exists. Do not think you can fool us, which is the modus operandi of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I will call on the Deputy Political Leader, Mr. Guy Joseph, who is the candidate for Castries Southeast, who will address us on the serious issue of universal health care. And, of course, he will be touching as well on the subject of infrastructure. Please welcome Mr. Joseph.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montoute, for the introduction. Let me say a pleasant good morning to everyone, and also congratulate my colleagues in the issues that they have addressed this morning. When we meet with you on a Tuesday morning at a press conference as the United Workers' Party in opposition, we are not just passing time. We are bringing factual information. We are bringing to light the real issues that confront the people of St. Lucia and we are asking the right questions and giving you the information that you require so that you can challenge the government and those in authority today to give you the right information. And so as a result, I just want to make a quick comment before I go to my main subject area on the issue of land. I will come to what my colleague Mrs. Johnson addressed in terms of the cost of living, and you would see where we are going with this. But on the land issue, we need to ask the government. The Labour Party boasted about the implementation of PROUD many years ago. That was one of the pet projects of Dr. Kenny Anthony. My information is that the PROUD unit has been disbanded, or everybody who used to work in PROUD is no longer there. Is that one of the reasons why Dr. Anthony is so upset with the Labour Party today? Because the PROUD unit was set up, and I know the PROUD unit achieved some things during its time in operation where, and both governments use PROUD. So both UWP and the St. Lucia Labour Party kept the PROUD unit going, and they did a fair amount of work. My information today is that the PROUD unit, I tried to call 3, 4, 5 people who used to work there because PROUD was under my ministry when I was in government, and everybody is telling me we are no longer there. So if that is the case, if PROUD is no longer in operation, who is going to undertake the task of making these lands available to St. Lucians? Are you setting up a new unit? And if Richard Frederick, as the Minister of Housing, is going to be in charge of this unit, then every St. Lucian has a right to be concerned. Secondly, we need clarification on the 10 acres of land at Union as to whether it has been sold and who it has been sold to. Because this was 10 acres of crown lands that became part of the government assets when the Daher Mall was acquired. It came with 10 acres of land at Union. My information is that these 10 acres of land have been sold to an operative of the St. Lucia Labour Party. I am calling. I cannot verify that information as I speak, so I am asking a question. Because these days, before you could have gone to the land registry or planning and get to know about properties, all of a sudden everything is under lock and key. So by the time you would find out what is happening in St. Lucia, there may not be a St. Lucia anymore. So the question is, has these 10 acres been sold? Have you sold these 10 acres? For whom and for how much? My next question is, the land in Deglo that was attempted to be purchased by one particular family and rejected by a United Workers' Party government, of which Stevenson King was present and voted not to sell the land then because he felt the same way the cabinet felt. So the proposal was rejected. My information is that land has now been sold, and sold for about 30 cents a square foot. I am calling on the government to clarify that information. I know at the time we were there, the proposal came to us at 42 cents a square foot, and we said that would never happen under UWP government. And imagine the land was offered at 42 cents and the person wanting to buy it was saying it was still too expensive. The good thing is I have my old cabinet papers on it. So when the Labour Party will want to challenge me on this, I will make the information available. And everybody in Forestier wants to know, so I'm calling on the parliamentary rep for Castries Southeast. Our information is that the land that was earmarked for the community center, on which construction had already begun, that a portion of this land has been sold to the same person I'm hearing who bought the land at Union. I want the government, when you come in and talk to people about you want to give them land and you want to do this and you want to do that, can you please clarify what has become of these state assets? That is as much as I will say on the land issue. I want to deal of infrastructure. Indicated again, maybe for the 10th time, his disappointment with himself and his ministry. I cannot understand how a prime minister presiding over again, he said he is not very happy. He said high level of incompetence by two individuals who have both served as prime minister and minister of infrastructure. So the Honorable Philip J. Pierre, under the previous Labour administration, was Minister of Infrastructure, now Prime Minister of St. Lucia. Honorable Stevenson King, Minister of Infrastructure under UWP government, and continued Minister of Infrastructure under a St. Lucia Labour Party government. So if there are two persons you would think who could get a project like that done, would be the Prime Minister, the present Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, the present Minister of Infrastructure, and the former Minister of Infrastructure. And all we have received for the past 4 years are excuses. And the latest excuse baffled me. Not even Tom and Jerry would give that kind of excuse that the Prime Minister gave. I mean, I listen to some of the comedies that come on social media sometimes. And none of the comedians can beat what Stevenson King said. You'd think the man was a comedian. And I will paraphrase what he said. He said the project is not really our project because a grant was given by the UK government and the project is being implemented by CDB. Honorable Stevenson King, I was at the meeting in Barbados. You were there. The Attorney General Stephen Julian was there. The then Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Chastanet, was present. That is not a CDB project. CDB is only handling the financial aspect because the money was put through CDB for the administration, not for the implementation of the project. For that matter, the project was delayed for almost a year because your ministry refunded to be in charge of the project while CDB was saying the engineer did not meet the benchmark qualifications to implement a project of that nature. And we were embarrassed when we got to Barbados because there we were thinking CDB was the one stalling the project while all the time it was Ministry of Infrastructure in St. Lucia who was stalling the project. And that's when the UWP was in government. So we knew you were at work undermining the government of the United Workers' Party. But I am happy that the St. Lucia Labour Party is getting a taste of their own medicine. The same way they used you to come after the United Workers' Party, You are using them now because you are not getting the projects done. So the excuse you give about not being able to deal with the contractor, that's a lame excuse. This is our project, our consultants on the project. The Ministry of Infrastructure is the one who signs off on the payments. How is it not our project? How are we not the ones responsible? CDB have any consultants on the ground they're paying to do the job? It is the Ministry of Infrastructure. The project has a consultant, and the ministry has its supervisors. You know, when people are incompetent, they tell you bad workmen always blame their tools. That is what we are getting. So, Mr. King, if you say that it is CDB that is delaying that project, or y'all cannot really do anything because technically you're saying you cannot really manage the contractor because it is CDB. I want you to tell the people of St. Lucia whether CDB is in charge of that crossing in Prale. The main road between north and south. How long have we seen a simple culvert crossing in Prale? How long has this been under construction? A year? How? So, the incompetence of the minister is coming across the board. You want to give us an excuse about the Millennium Highway, but you not going to tell us what is happening? Why does a simple crossing take so long? If you cast the foundation and you cast the top of half of the road, you need 21 days for the concrete to settle. And if you add the right additives to the concrete, you can get your concrete strength in a week or 2 weeks. So if you want to take your full 21 or 28 days, so one side of the road should take us 28 days to settle, then you open and you go to the other side. As far as I recall, it may be almost a year or more that this little culvert crossing is under construction in Prale. And all of a sudden, what we see for speed bumps in the road are ropes. You would think is a ship they are tying. Not the ship that grazes, you know. The ships that anchor in the bay. Everywhere I'm passing now, I'm seeing a big rope across the road, and that is our speed bump. Is that what we have become in this country? When every project has a component of safety, and there is a fair amount of money allocated for safety, where you have proper signage, where you have proper barriers, where you have proper lights indicating that there is danger ahead. Can you imagine going into the rainy season and driving on these roads with all these potholes, open trenches? There's been an open trench right there in cul-de-sac for over 6 months. They did the two sides and they left a big hole in the middle without any proper signage. And you going to tell the people of St. Lucia that it is CDB that is hampering the implementation of that project? What absurdity for a man who should... Your 30 years in politics has brought in no results. Maybe you need 30 years to finish that road. So I don't know if you'll still be alive when this road is done, given your age. But you know, we must hold governments accountable. And then, this is the same minister who stopped the Rodney Bay Road. He's part of the government that stopped the airport project and could have fired the Taiwanese contractor when the money came from the Exim Bank in Taiwan. And the arrangement with the Exim Bank was that the project would be done by a Taiwanese contractor because of the process of getting the money through the Exim Bank. You could fire them. You could terminate the control tower contract at the airport in Vieux-Fort. You could stop the airport project, but you want to give us excuses that you cannot deal with the Millennium Highway? The road in Rodney Bay was being done. The contractor was putting his own money. You knew how to stop the project. You gave a stop notice, and you had a certain number of days in which the contractor had to measure up and the ministry had to keep its end. None of it happened. So you know how to terminate contracts. You know how to get contracts terminated. You tell us why you've not been able to deal with this one, and stop giving us these lame excuses. So here we are in the rainy season again. How many times have we heard the Labour Party say you cannot fix roads in the rain? So are we going to drag through this rainy season, which started earlier than the 1st of June? Because for the last 3 weeks we've had rain. What is becoming of this? You see, I want St. Lucians to understand. There are some things that it takes people who can work to make it happen. They're doing a little bridge crossing, they could not do it. Shock Bridge and Bois d'Orange Bridge. When I was Minister of Infrastructure and Hurricane Thomas came with all of its challenges, and the whole top of the bridge was washed away and the other bridge was gone. In 24 hours, we were able to get Shock and Bois d'Orange Bridge open. You know who was minister? Guy Joseph. You know who was prime minister? Stevenson King. Who made the difference? Certainly not Stevenson King. Because if he could have made the difference then, when you were stuck in Barbados, you remember who you called? You called me and you said, Minister, do what you have to do to get the country going. And we did get the country going. So I am saying to the people of St. Lucia, you have to know who can work and who cannot work. So this same Labour Party government stopped the Rodney Bay Road, stopped the Shock project, stopped the Talvan project, stop the airport project. All of a sudden, they are throwing their hands in the air and saying we cannot do anything about the Millennium Highway. That's a lie. You could have done something on the Millennium Highway, you didn't do it. And you could have done something on the other road, that is the road linking the Millennium Highway to Soufrière. But that you are going to hear more about. I go to the main subject for me for today, UHC, Universal Health Coverage. Now, sometimes I want St. Lucians to take time to understand why things happen the way that they happen. And that is why I always give my information. In my hand there is the 2011 manifesto of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Why am I dealing with the 2011 manifesto? That is to tell all the people who are promised land how long it may take you on the Labour Party to get land, if you ever get it. So, I will go first of all to page 13 on the manifesto. On page 13, here's what the Labour Party told us. On the value-added tax, Here's what the government said. Government must respond to the growing and changing needs of its citizens. Among these are the need to ensure that. So they're giving us the reasons why they implemented VAT. And here are the reasons. And St. Lucians, don't forget, that was implemented around 2012 by a St. Lucia Labour Party, of which Dr. Kenny Anthony was Prime Minister and Philip J. Pierre was Deputy. Note what they said. All children from birth get access to quality education. This was promised in 2011 as to why VAT was being implemented. All citizens have access to affordable health care. High-risk groups get effective social protection services. The population is serviced by an efficient public service. Our country has a sound, well-maintained stock of public infrastructure. When Labour Party wanted to implement VAT, that is what. Now, I've spoken about infrastructure. It's the worst it has ever been in this country. There are so many government offices infested with mold that people have to work from home, people are getting sick, and we are still paying rent for some of these buildings. So here's where I focus. All citizens have access to affordable health care. That is what the Labour Party said in 2011 when they were implementing VAT. As to the reason, on page 38, still in the 2011 manifesto, universal health care, a reality. Did you hear what I say? Labour Party said universal health care, a reality. And here's what they say. It is our primary mission to ensure that every St. Lucian has access to a package of guaranteed health services. And they went on to say, in this term of office, our party will implement universal health care. That is what Kenny Anthony and Philip J. Pierre said in 2011. I want to ask every right-thinking St. Lucian, do you have access to quality health care? Can you afford quality health care? Because how long have you been paying VAT? 12 years. And we were paying VAT with the promise of a Labour Party government that we would get quality health care. That is why I know the Labour Party have challenges with Guy Joseph, because I don't come and tell you stories. And I'm able to connect the dots, because I always say, if you are a Bible student, you will understand one thing. There's only one way to understand the Bible. Precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. So you have to put the bits and pieces together. So when you read one page of the manifesto, it says something. It says why they're implementing VAT. And it says quality healthcare. But when you go under universal healthcare now, it gives you a specific time period. We are in 2025. Do we have universal healthcare? And to further compound the situation, Philip J. Pierre, having been part of the Labour administration since 1997 and was part of the architect who gave that manifesto, comes to us and now implements a health and security levy at 2.5%. A health and security levy. But you see, I don't want to just tell you things you know. I'm going to the manifesto of the St. Lucia Labour Party. It says universal health care on page 20, the 2021 manifesto with Philip J. Pierre. On page 20, it says universal health care will be implemented within our first term of a Labour Party government. I'm still trying to understand that English. So I heard my colleague say Sapa Labour. Maybe that's not Labour, that was in government all before. Because if Philip J. Pierre is saying Labour has been in office 79, well, they were there in 51 to 64. They were there in 79 to 82. They were there in 97 to 2006. They were there in 2011 to 2016. But here's what the manifesto of Philip J. Pierre says. Universal health care will be implemented within the first term of a Labour Party government. He didn't say of his Labour Party government. The first term of a Labour Party in government. So maybe all before. St. Jude will be reopened within the shortest possible time. The OKEU hospital will be adequately resourced with proper emergency services. We shall make the employment of all eligible contracted nurses and doctors permanent. In demonstration of a Labour Party's government commitment to healthcare and the well-being of its citizens. Here's what he says. A percentage of GDP will be committed to the maintenance and improvement of St. Lucia's healthcare facility. He never said he was going to implement a 2.5%. He said a percentage of GDP, not an additional tax. Yet still, he came with a health and security levy, and what do we have to show for it? So, I still have the letter from the Medical and Dental Association, which highlighted all of the problems at the health institutions. And those of us who have been to the health institutions in most recent times, how much improvement is there at the OKEU hospital? So the Labour Party now, they want to do things that will distract us, that will cause the discussion to go in a different direction. So you're making false promises of land to people. Yeah, a few people might get some land because you've been selling land to friends of the Labour Party for a long time. And you want to cover up what you are doing. So the 10 acres at Union, couldn't it have been given to poor and needy people? But I will find out the price in time. So, you implemented VAT. We've paid VAT for over 12 years in this country, and there's no improvement in healthcare. So should we stop paying VAT? You promise, you introduced 2.5 health and security levy, and you lied to us, Prime Minister, about the reason for health and security when it was really to secure a loan. Was it from the same CDB or the World Bank? I am asking every St. Lucian, how many of you can afford health care? Why do we still have so many barbecues, so many fundraising activities for basic health care in this country? You know why that is happening to St. Lucians? Because UWP lost the elections in 2021. If UWP had won the election, every St. Lucian today would have health coverage to the tune of $75,000 per year. So, you said that you are going to introduce universal health care. We are in the last year of the government. And from all indications, you intend to call elections before July of 2020. 2026. When will universal health care be implemented? How many manifestos of Labour Party do I have to go to show you that all the things you say you will do, you have never done them? So, St. Lucia, right in this room, where I am standing here today, a presentation on universal health care was made to the opposition by the consultants engaged by the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party. St. Lucia, did you hear me? So 4 years you telling us you're going to implement universal health care in this term in government, and only now you send in consultants on the eve of elections. And St. Lucia, I will stick to my word. At our Sunday Live, I said I'm giving the government a week. I don't know if they addressed universal health care at the cabinet briefing yesterday, but the week is still running. And I'm hoping by next Tuesday at our press briefing, we will disclose the information if the government fails to disclose it. Because the information they're telling us about universal health care and everything free is a lie. The government has never explained universal health care. And what I can tell you is that the United Workers' Party government was much more advanced in its preparation for implementation of universal health care than the consultants who came to present to the opposition. In fact, we could have presented to the consultants, not the consultants presenting to us, because we were so far ahead of them. Now what they are doing is good. I'm not criticizing what the consultants are doing. I am saying to you that we were much more advanced. Can you imagine? You are in grade 6 already, and they put you back in grade 3. And you now have to redo the work that you did in grade 3 when you're already doing work in grade 6. That is how I describe where universal health care is under the St. Lucia Labour Party. But Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Health, I am calling upon you all to come clean with the people of St. Lucia. Tell us how you're going to finance universal health care. Tell us what universal health care will offer and how it will work. Because the consultants are far from understanding. They're still doing research. They're still finding out things that is already available in the Ministry of Health. Maybe it would be wise to tell us how much you pay in the consultants now for work that has already been done and is sitting on computers and in files in the Ministry of Health. And so in closing, I want to say to us, the people of St. Lucia, do not be fooled by what you are hearing. These promises, you heard what the contractor for St. Jude said? He said, cost does not matter. But I know to every St. Lucian, cost matters. Maybe to Reno Gajada, cost does not matter. Because when you have more money than you need to live, cost does not matter. But how many St. Lucians can say that? And here is a man who is given a job by the country that is being paid by taxpayers, and he is given the latitude to say that cost does not matter. Have you heard one minister from government? Have you heard one individual from the Labour Party say, I have a problem with the fact that cost does not matter? So is that why groceries are so expensive? Is that why we cannot afford to go to the supermarket? Is that why now people can't even take their family for a little outing? Is that why we cannot afford health care? Because the Labour Party has allowed everything to skyrocket, because as far as the Elon Musk says, cost does not matter. St. Lucia, I know cost matters to us. Cost matters to the United Workers' Party. Cost matters to the single mother and even the well-structured family who earns a decent salary. We still have to watch how we live and how much we pay for things. So, St. Lucia, there is only one solution to our problem. And that solution is, let us get rid of this St. Lucia Labour Party government and the high level of incompetent ministers, and let us bring persons who are competent. When I listen to my colleague, Mrs. Marcella Johnson, a well-made, successful woman. When I listen to my colleague, Rosh Clark, a young man who rose through the most difficult challenges of growing up in a society that is labeled and branded, and made something good of himself, can become a role model that other young people can emulate. These are the kind of leaders that we are presenting to this country for the future. And the future of St. Lucia will be in good hands under a United Workers' Party government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Guy Joseph. And as you heard from Mr. Joseph, to our government, cost does not matter. But I hope when you have taken a decision, St. Lucia, they will not be bothered by what it will cost them, because at that time, it will not matter to us how much it costs them. And I will say to the government of St. Lucia, their attitude and their approach will cost them dearly, and I hope it will not matter then. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the point where we have heard the three presentations, and we are now open to questions from the media. Are there any questions? Yes.
My question is for Mrs. Johnson.
Mrs. Johnson, question for you.
Okay. I have two questions for you. The first one, your presentation was on cost of living. There is a growing amount of St. Lucians who are working. They have salaries above minimum wage, but they are still unable to meet their financial obligations. If you are elected into office, what plans will you pursue to alleviate that reality?
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, you said there are many persons working above the minimum wage, but they are unable to meet the reality of the rising cost of living. So the real reality is that this government has kept the gas prices at an all-time high when it could have been much lower. We were paying $16.50 at the pump, when on average we have seen, when UWP was in office, the price on the world market was about US $120 per barrel. It has gone down as low as 60 US a barrel. So you could well imagine the kind of money they are making on the backs of St. Lucians. When a UWP government gets into office, we will ensure that the gas prices at the pump equate to what is happening on the world market. And if we have to intervene, we will intervene to subsidize if we have to. Because fuel prices affect every sector of society. You have seen how it affects transportation. You have seen how it affects our utility bill. the businesses in this country, they are also suffering, because I can guarantee you, when prices are up, it will find its way to the consumers on the grocery shelves. So it is the policies that governments implement which can alleviate some of the burdens that the most vulnerable in our society are facing. And with a UWP government, we are concerned about people. And as my colleague, Mr. Guy Joseph said, we are concerned about cost, the cost of living. And that is what we will bring to the leadership of this country. We will ensure that we always put the people of this country at the forefront of any decision that we make.
My last question. Your constituency consists of a large population of farmers. What are your views on the proposed crop insurance from the current administration?
Okay. We have a percentage of farmers in the constituency in certain areas, such as the Moshi area, Diramo, and so on. In terms of the crop insurance that the administration is proposing, I have not done proper research on it, so I don't want to give any information on that right now, but I will get back to you on that when I've done proper research and analyzed it. Is that? Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, question for Mr. Joseph.
So maybe even before I take your question, given that Castries Southeast is a famine belt in this country, I've heard snippets of what the government is proposing. I'm a bit concerned about the format that they want to use, because the insurance will be paid, but the money will be paid to the government, and the government in turn will pay the farmers. I am a bit confused about. I am not even sure that the government knows exactly what they want to do. Like I said, I suspect the government came with a shopping cart and put a lot of things in it and tell people, we are going to give you these things. But they have not told us the price of it. What they are telling us is, vote for us and then we will tell you the price later. St. Lucians will not fall for that trick, because this is the same Labour Party when Sir John wanted to implement a pension scheme for farmers, opposed it. This is the same government that destroyed the agricultural sector. And you can go and look at the stats and you would see. We are hearing the government is now going to reduce the importation cost of some of the things that we are producing locally. You know what that's going to do to the agricultural sector? Already it is in decline. So when you make the things that are coming from overseas cheaper than the things that are produced in your country, what do you think is going to happen? So it is clear that it's scattershots this government is firing, and they are hoping to hit something along the way. There must be a structured plan to rescue this country, and that structured plan can only be found in the United Workers' Party.
Your constituents are also have a great population of butchers. How do they feel about the government now providing concessions for people who want to buy meat from Brazil?
Well, that's exactly what I am saying. It means that you are killing the local industry, or you are reducing. So when the cost of living is going up, You are reducing the earnings of people. And on the question you asked my colleague earlier, what would a UWP government do? That's why we introduced the 7-crop program. That would make us self-sufficient in these areas. Then you get a premium price for these things. You can lower the price on the other things you are not producing. So at the end of the day, you balance your budget. So what a UWP government is addressing is the holistic situation, not a one-size-fits-all. It doesn't happen. And that is why minimum wage has put us... People need to understand, minimum wage, one minimum wage across the board has created more problems. It has benefited some people. So you see this minimum wage that was implemented there, it's good. But it should not have been across sectors. The construction and sector should have been at a different level of minimum wage. And so a UWP government will balance the cost of living with inflation. Because unless you do that, people are going to have to dig deeper into their pockets every day for things that they don't have. And we are already living on credit. We will have to live more on credit under a Labour Party government. We will make it right under UWP.
My final question, what is your response to the allegation that no investments except for the racetrack were implemented during the last were implemented during the last administration?
Well, we've always heard the Labour Party say that no investment was made. When did Cabot come? You see, I mean, just from the top of my head, I can tell you the horse racing track happened. How many hotels? Why didn't the Sandals Hotel begin? You know why? Because the then speaker, the former speaker of the House, had taken the government to court on a non-issue about a strip of land up there. So the Labour Party, that's the same Labour Party who said we are going to write to investors and tell them, do not invest in St. Lucia. Do not do this, do not do that. So the project that is happening at Point Seraphine, which government organized for that project to happen? The hotel that's going on there. So when Labour will tell, oh, no projects happen. Didn't Ernest Hill say we were the ones who brought Galaxy to St. Lucia? Under who did the Galaxy project begin? The Galaxy project began under UWP. The difference with Labour and UWP is that we gave them about 700 and something passports for the project. A $300 million project. They were supposed to put 90 million of this. They were going to sell passports to raise 210 million. All of a sudden you give them money for over $1 billion for the same project. So how can they say no project? The racetrack was built. There were horse racing taking place there already. You had all of these other Cabot. Labour made it a human cry about Cabot. St. Jude, we were building a brand new St. Jude hospital. By now, this Soufrière hospital would have been completed. And you see, all they talk about is foreign direct investment. What was the investment on the people? The Soufrière mini stadium. You had the Deriso playing field. You had the Mikud playing field. You had the Denry. Look at the facilities that was being developed for the people of St. Lucia. So Labour Party think that people forget because all of a sudden they think it's they that did Cabot, you know. When you see them whining and dining and eating their steak and having a good time with the Cabot people, all of a sudden they forgot that Cabot was brought here by the United Workers' Party government and they were the ones who opposed the project. So they want to make St. Lucians believe is only the horse racing track we did. So soon you'll hear them claiming that the airport, the Marriott that's being built, is it a Marriott being built at Point Seraphine? They'll tell you we did that too. So when you see people claim what they did not do, you know they are dishonest. And that's what the Labour Party is. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Clark, just could you step forward?
You are the hopeful constituency rep for Central Castries. We've had a housing crisis in Central Castries for quite some time, and it has been exacerbated by the demolition of Block X and also by the derelict condition of the other CDC buildings that I guess will need to be demolished soon. If you are elected into office, what are your plans to deal with that situation?
Thanks once again for the question. A question like that is as, how should I say, complex as it requires as much research and study into the facilities and the persons that live there. One of the things that the United Workers' Party will do is, again, find a lot of focus to the persons that live in the area, study the conditions as to where they are, and make the right changes that would facilitate the movement of any zone management that we decide to go on. We have seen the current representative taking his own act of housing development. And we have these, I think they're hotels or structures in Dennery, 4 of them in question. It's sad, but we can guarantee that the United Workers' Party would not be using that as an example of housing development inside of St. Lucia, not in this country. Persons deserve better, and the follow-up to the level of investment that needs to go into the persons that stay in the ghettos, persons that stay in poor living conditions, is something we cannot take for granted. We need to go into these areas and not just develop homes, but develop communities, develop cities with all concepts of its function. Job opportunities need to be heavily implemented inside of our community development. So this is one that will be taken on very seriously in each and every area.
Final question. What are your plans to alleviate the plight of the vendors in the city?
I have been seeing the struggles and the hardships that the vendors have been going through. And I want to make this quite clear. Our vendors are not persons that should be pushed aside. Our vendors are entrepreneurs. Our vendors are small business owners that help motivate, help push forward our economy. As of right now, there's many rumors as to what this current representative has as his intentions to bring about his own investment inside of the areas that he's moving the vendors out. But as you see, the United Workers' Party started with the Anchorage development, the Anchorage building for the Castries market, and we intend on expanding. We intend on incorporating to focus heavily on local vendors, local produce, and local investment inside of our country. We will not push them aside and treat them as second-rate citizens. That much I can tell you.
So if there are no more questions, we will be bringing our press briefing to a close. I want to thank everyone. I want to first of all thank Mrs. Marcella Johnson, Mr. Rush Clark, and Mr. Guy Joseph, who were the presenters. I want to thank the members of the media. And I want to especially thank those of you who have been watching and listening. And in particular, I want to say a special thanks to those of you in the diaspora who continue to show a keen interest in what is happening in this country. Please join us again next week for another press briefing by the United Workers' Party. And let me just take the opportunity to remind you that on Thursday, you can join Nancy Charles at 9 in the morning for an episode of Meet the Opposition. On Saturday, you can join the Sisters of the South, that is Laura Jean-Pierre Noel and Lady Lee of Vieux-Fort South, where they're staging a community night at Debbie's Place in the South. So we're asking you to please come and support and join and be part of that event. Of course, we'll be announcing shortly where we will be staging our Sunday Live coming Sunday. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again and have a good day.